What up, everyone? This is the Twice Over Film Club, and I'm your host, Faraz. Today, we're getting into the details on Promising Young Woman, so of course, this episode does contain spoilers. Keep an eye out next week as we continue our reviews and discussions on all the Best Picture nominees at the Academy Awards with The Father. As always, check out our previous episodes on all the other nominees and any other film that we've done over the past year. Follow us at the Twice Over on all the socials to keep up with us on our watch schedule. Okay, on to our discussion with myself, Farhan, and Yusuf. We're back with the discussion. Farhan and Yusuf, Promising Young Woman, Best Picture nominee,
good.
Academy Awards, which is next week, I think.
Academy Awards darling.
Academy Awards darling?
Yeah.
You think?
I mean, it's nominated for a lot of stuff. Okay, it's not the darling. I think what's got the most nominations? Probably Nomadland, right?
I don't know what's the most nomination. This has 5 nominations.
Oh, The Father. The Father's pretty heavy too. But five or yeah, I mean anything with 5 or so, that's a lot.
I felt like there was another movie that had a lot more. The Father has 6, Trial has 6, Nomadland has 6, Mank has 10. That's the one.
What in
It's
tarnation?
Dude, it was just honestly, I think it was just a weird year for movies.
You know, they always do that though. When there's a movie about Hollywood, it's like, oh, let's go all
I think there's
in.
probably a lot of like set design, costume design, this like stuff that people don't necessarily think too much into when it comes to the awards. Like they want to know best director, best picture, best actor. Like that's what they want to see. And then Minari also has 6. Sound of Metal has 6. So in fact, out of all of them, this has the least Farhan or Yusuf. So it's not the darling.
All right, the Cinderella.
Okay, there you go.
I just wanted
Cinderella.
to give it it's the Cinderella of the
Shrek.
the Academy. What?
What?
The Shrek. I don't know.
All right, well, you're
I'm
Lord
just trying to think
Farquaad
something
then.
different. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So Faraz, you wanna run back our scores real quick, our totals?
Yeah. So Farhan came in with the 75. I went up to a 79, and Yusuf was at an 83.
Nice. 83. That's again. I think we all agreed mostly on the narrative. Well, me and Faraz agreed on the narrative, but I care more about narrative, so that makes sense. I'm a little bit higher on this movie overall, right? Quick summary is that Cassie is like a 30-year-old who dropped out of medical school. We don't really know her background, but essentially the first thing we see her doing is pretending to be drunk at a club, letting a guy take her home, and make a move on her, and then revealing that she's not really drunk and scaring the crap out of him. And she's on this. She does this night after night to try and scare people into proper behavior, I guess, right? And it's clear that she knew somebody who was a victim of sexual assault, which turns out to be her best friend Nina, who was a classmate of hers in med school and a childhood friend as well. She continues this pattern until she runs into a former classmate, Ryan, who asks her out on a date, and they seem to get along. She's kind of coming out of her shell a little bit, until he mentions another classmate of theirs that is getting married. His name is Al Monroe, former med school classmate of theirs, and also the person accused of raping her best friend. So when she mentions that, she decides that she's going to, instead of going after random people and scaring them out of their bad habits towards women, she decides she's going to go after the people who are responsible for Nina's rape. She first goes after a good friend of theirs, Madison, who just didn't want to believe Nina. And the second victim she goes after, or the second culprit she goes after is the medical school dean who dismissed the case because she didn't believe Nina. The third suspect was, the third culprit is the attorney who got a lot of these charges dismissed for different students. And then finally, although Cassie seems to be trying to move on from this, things are going well with her relationship with Ryan. In the end, she realizes that Ryan knew about the incident the whole time. He was actually present when the rape occurred, and that sets her off on her final victim, which is Al Monroe. Al Monroe was the one who committed the rape. Cassie basically attends the bachelor party and posing as a stripper and drugs everyone, takes Al upstairs handcuffs him to the bed, and is going to engrave Nina's name onto his chest with a scalpel, but is unable to do so because Al basically gets the upper hand and suffocates her to death. Yeah, you want to take it from there?
And I mean, then she has a contingency plan pretty much, right? Because that video that Madison shared with her, she has already sent that video over to the lawyer, and she says to the lawyer to send this to the police if I disappear. That's pretty much what the lawyer does, right? Because she disappears. There's a missing persons case because the parents are like, hey, she hasn't been home in a few days. Yeah, so her contingency plan was to get the tape that Madison shared, or the video, I should say, it was on a cell phone. The video that Madison shared to the cops, and that triggers the cops to go to the wedding. While they're there, they know that there's a missing persons, obviously, right? So they got like dogs searching for Cassie, and they eventually find the dogs, like, sniff her out. They find that she was cremated pretty much after being suffocated to death, and they arrest Al, and that's like her way of, that's her final revenge, I guess. That's how she gets back at him. I mean, I'm not too surprised with any of the scores, to be honest. I think what Farhan is saying is true. It is actually, no, I think the themes are really good.
Well, yeah, but most of everything else is pretty.
You gave it 100 on the themes.
I mean,
yeah.
it's
you gotta explain yourself.
Okay, yeah.
So tell us,
course.
like, what? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. What do you think they did really well in terms of execution?
I thought that whole cancel culture stuff that you're talking about, I thought they presented it with quite a bit of nuance, and they did a very good job of doing that. Because there is a lot of complexity to these kind of situations that they're talking about, who is and is not guilty when something like this happens. Sexual assault at a party when everyone is drunk. Who, like you said that this movie's a movie about cancel culture or canceling people. I think it's totally not, because they have like a very clear, somewhat, obvious example of what they want to see when something like this happens, right? The lawyer, when he talks about, like, he can't sleep at night, he regrets what he's done, like, to all these women for all the guys that he represented, and all he did was, like, basically apologize for what he has done. And Cassie forgives him, right? She just says, like, I forgive you, and she just moves on with her life, and that's like when she changes her entire tone, and she's gonna be living a normal life. She's gonna, go ahead and keep going out with
Ryan.
Yeah, so she's gonna go out with Ryan, and she's gonna be a normal girl again, and then obviously it comes crashing down when she finds out that Ryan was at the party. And if I think Ryan had reacted similar to how the lawyer did, or like, showed some regret, showed some remorse, or he's obviously not guilty of the sexual assault himself, but the fact that he was there when it happened, and he's going out with a girl that he knows she's like traumatized by it, or like, she's affected by it in some way. Maybe he doesn't know the extent of it, but he knows that she's affected by it, and he's just like not, like, I don't know, not being open about it, not showing any regret or remorse or things like that. So I think that's where he messed up, right? If he had just apologized or been open about it and said, like, hey, I was there, I'm sorry, I didn't know, like, what to do, I was young, I was drunk, whatever. I didn't like how they kept saying how young they were. They're freaking med students, so they weren't young at all.
Yeah, they kept saying I was a kid. It was It was infuriating, and I think that was on purpose because
it was.
That happens
it was
a
on
lot,
purpose,
right?
for sure.
Yeah,
that's what happens all the time.
Yeah.
Like, these are freaking full-grown adults, man. In any case, I did not think it was about cancel culture, because the guys generally have opportunities to redeem themselves and they don't do it. Even the main guy, Al, there's some nuance to his character as well, because look, at the bachelor party, he's the one who doesn't want to have the stripper there. He's the one who doesn't want to go upstairs with the stripper. He is the one who's like kind of being straight edge, like he's not the crazy one there. But like he's in this environment, like all his boys, and it's kind of like it's just devolving into this, douchebaggery that it's hard for him to escape from. So like I think they're putting in all the layers that exist and all the stuff that can make a situation like this more murky and less black and white. And I thought they did a really good job of doing that.
So when I say this stuff about cancel culture, I'm not I'm not saying that necessarily in a demeaning way.
It's funny. Yeah, Faraz is taking that as a derogatory.
Yeah,
because a lot of people use that as a derogatory. That like,
Right.
oh, cancel culture strikes again, right? It's
Yeah.
not necessarily a bad thing if somebody gets canceled.
Yeah. I'm just saying that was the context. I'm not being like, oh, this movie is about like these people just going out and like without any base, just with no claims, just going and canceling people.
I still
I'm not
don't
saying
think
that.
she's canceling people though. Like,
Yeah, people are getting canceled. That's 100% the movie.
I don't.
So do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I
You're
agree
being
that
canceled
people.
if you don't do if you don't show remorse, I guess, right? If you're part of the problem, you're getting canceled. If you are,
so that's exactly what was going on.
okay, fine. As long as you agree that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there is. I'm not saying that there is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that she's like going out and being like just accusing all these people and being like this one thing. Oh, you're canceled. Oh, you're canceled, honey. Oh, you're canceled. It's not like that.
People are being given chances, meaningful chances
Right.
to own up, and when they don't, they are being canceled, you could say,
Yeah.
right? That's not how we typically think of cancellation, because in the Twitter world, something you said 10 years ago comes back to bite you, and doesn't matter how you try to apologize, right? I think that's kind of the distinction that Faraz is trying to make, because that's not what's going on. And so, basically, in the real world, I think things are more complicated. In this movie, everyone gets a clean chance to own up to what they did, and their consequences depend on how they react to that, right? So it's like a much more it's a much more just process than a lot of people think what of when they think of cancel culture, I guess. Although
Yeah.
I disagree sometimes, where cancel culture is totally fine by me a lot of times. I think sometimes people get what they deserve all the way. I'm sure there are definitely cases where that stuff is taken a little bit too far, where minor slip-ups end up kind of ruining somebody's trajectory. But stuff like this, especially in this context, in the context of sexual assault, you wouldn't feel bad for anyone here. So it's like,
Yeah. Okay. So here's my, I guess, because we were sort of on the topic of the themes, man. So 100 score on the themes. Okay, and I just want to make sure that
mainly
we're
for
all.
its execution for it, because
Okay.
I think this is a tough subject to present well and also entertain an audience in doing so. So
Sure. That makes sense. For me, the themes category means that other stuff, specifically like narrative, has to also be a really high score. And for me, here's my gripes with this movie. So much was either rushed or just plainly not thought about, or they just thought people wouldn't even delve deep enough to even care about the little details that do matter. That it completely took me out of the movie, and honestly, I saw the process, so I hated those parts about this movie. What this movie was trying to do, in my opinion, because of those flaws, technically, the message fell flat. Because it's kind of saying, look at what women could do. And this is like, when you hear about the stuff of this movie, I just looked through the trivia, and it's like this is the first year that this and another movie were both, women that were nominated for directors and stuff like that. I'm like, this is the movie that you give that kind of that clout to. To me, this is not deserving at all of any of the praise that it's been given, because of all of the plot holes that are in this movie for me.
there are a lot of plot holes.
Yeah, but what does that really have to do with the themes? I mean, I can see the argument that unless like the narrative is really tight, then it's hard to give the themes a 100, and so you can argue with Faraz on that perhaps, but the themes can be high. The themes can be really substantial without having a perfect plot, I think.
Because I see what you're saying. So part of the category for me is the execution of that theme throughout the movie. The execution of that theme has to be shown through narratives first and foremost, and then secondarily writing and acting for me. And if it's not executed, the narrative is not executed correctly, then I don't know how the themes can be.
What was your biggest gripe with the narrative? I mean, there was holes in terms of like how quickly it moved. in terms of like how she could be in so many places in one time, things like that. That's like what was like bothering me, but whatever. That had nothing to do with the themes.
The fact that she is 30 years old, because she had just turned 30,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know, maybe it's just maybe just because I know this, and just me personally. And I'm not saying that this has to apply to anybody. I don't know. Okay, I don't know who you are listening. Just for me, that she's 30 years old, and they're talking about this was so way back then.
Oh,
The
yeah.
most that this could have been was 5-6 years ago. That's
Yeah.
the most that this could have. That's the furthest away that this could have been. 5-6 years ago is really. I can tell you exactly where I was. Give me the month, I'll tell you exactly what I was doing 6 years ago. Like, it's not that long ago. And when these people talk about, like, oh, we were kids and all that stuff, like,
Yeah, but I think
that's
what
6
you
years
just
ago.
said-
You were not kids.
Yeah, but that is the part of the
That's the point, right?
that's a thematic point that it's making, right? It's making the point that people say that when they don't want to own up to their actions, that it's
Yeah.
almost as if it was a different person, or it was again, like he says, when we were just kids, like
No.
that
Yeah,
is-
I get that. I get that.
Yeah,
I buy that. But
that's
what I'm
excusing your
talking-
own responsibility. So
Yeah. No, I understand that part. But just the fact that they just made it seem like everything was so surface level that it was. I just don't. They didn't delve deep enough into the stuff. Like, get some
The
research.
story.
Ask a
right?
med student what their life is like. Is this possible? We all know doctors, right? What do they like to talk about more than anything? But when they're talking about med school, specific ass stuff with classes, with cases, with patients, and all this stuff. All they like to do is talk about medicine, and nobody here. I don't believe that a single person in this entire movie was a doctor,
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
because that's
You
not
wanted-
how they freaking talk.
But I don't think that
you
is
wanted
like
to talk about medicine more? Is that what you're saying?
Well, dude, I didn't buy that there was anything realistic in the
Yeah.
whole in any conversation that they were having.
But I feel-
Every single conversation I was taken out of it, because I was taken out of any conversation. There was zero buy-in for me. Like, I was not invested into anything.
You just
So I was
wanted it
this
to
is
be
BS.
like
This is
your
all BS.
your normal interactions with doctors. You just wanted I could do without a couple more conversations about what it is like when you're rounding really early in the morning and your attending is on your ass. I could do without it, Farhan, to be honest.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm saying it doesn't make this realistic
Wait,
at all. And I'm giving small examples off the top of my head.
But to peel back a little bit, there's very
Yeah.
few scenes where we have like two doctor characters interacting with each other in depth, because Cassie's not a doctor. She's a dropout who resents her time at med school, right? So most of the movie's from her perspective. So she talks to a lot of doctors, but it's not a doctor versus doctor conversation, right? So I just wanted to point out that it's a distinction you can make, because she's traumatized by her time there, basically.
And she also always changes the subject too, because she doesn't want to talk about med school and like what was happening back then.
That's just a small example, but I'm saying there's things like that throughout the entire movie that took me out of everything, because I was repeatedly taken out of, like, man, probably half the movie. I couldn't buy into any of the stuff. So I get what they were trying to do, though, but I think it's rushed, and I think it was a great idea that wasn't developed. Look, they filmed this movie over 23 days,
Really? Okay.
and it shows.
You know,
It freaking shows.
The
So
one thing I didn't get, the one thing that bothered me about the plot was, man, she's got quite a bit of like cash to do all this stuff, man, but she's driving around in a 1988 like Camry or Corolla, and like, where is she getting all
I
this
told you,
money?
man, it's just stuff that was just not developed.
But it's just, I think it was just trying to create an aesthetic for the film. It's not important, and I get what you're saying. Maybe if it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, would you care as much about those things? Or because it was nominated for Best Picture, that you were like,
See,
you
I don't know. Maybe
expected
that's a
those
good
things?
question. That's a good question, because that is my thing. I was expecting like this. I was expecting a much more. Yeah, I don't know. Just a
This is not your idea.
technically,
of,
like a more technically brilliant movie than what I was given. So maybe that is what it is. Maybe if it wasn't, then I wouldn't have so many gripes with it. But I'm like, come on, man.
Okay, but focusing on the theme specifically, I mean, I think they did a lot with it. I mean, I only went with an 85. Faraz is much higher than I am, but I could have gone higher, because I do think that they showed they showed the effect of sexual assault on a lot of different people in a lot of different ways, and it's pretty natural to the story. Like, I mean, of course, the plot is not perfect. Why is she driving a beat up car when she has plenty of money to blow? I don't know, but that does not affect my opinion of the themes. That kind of stuff, I understand it's not a perfect narrative. That does not affect my score for the themes. Like, something that I thought they just did really, really well was characterizing the deniers of a sexual assault, right? Like, I mean, they have a character that fits into, each of kind of the classic molds, right? Because, as you watch Cassie go through kind of her hit list, right? She's starting with Madison McPhee, who's, the best friend, the woman who just wants to be everyone's friend and wants to be liked, right? And then she also goes after, the dean of the medical school, who is also a woman, right? Who just, is very bureaucratic, I guess you could say, but she's just all about business and is trying to be objective and is being very unobjective in that process. The attorney, of course, and then Al Monroe himself, right? They and I'm not even mentioning Ryan, probably my favorite depiction, because they just did such a good job of making Ryan feel like he's a good guy and showing how he might even be a good guy until he's not really a good guy. Like, they just, the idea that, like, even the people who think they're good guys and appear to be good guys, by their silence or by their denial are not good guys, right? I just thought they did that really well, and that wasn't in your face, right? That, I mean, it was obviously a mechanism of the plot, but I thought they did little things like that particularly well, just to show how, I don't know, just how complicit a lot of people can be without realizing that they are,
Yeah, no, I agree. That's exactly what I thought was done so well, Yusuf, was especially with Ryan, was how, again, there's nuance and complexity to, his role, his situation, and what he could or should have done, or if not back then, now, what he could or should have done. But at the end of the day, he is a selfish douche like the rest of them,
Yeah.
right? Because the cops come to him about Cassie's whereabouts, and he just lies to them when he could easily have told them the truth. But yeah, I just thought the themes were, I mean, again, I also gave it 100 with the idea that if someone is watching this movie, you're watching it to get the themes out of it. Like, it's super integral and important to the film itself. Like, if that passes over you and you don't, like, see it at all, then it will just be like a pretty weak movie with very with a bunch of plot holes. Fun, like,
I do think if you're gonna watch this movie, obviously it's for you're not. Nobody's gonna watch this movie without knowing what it. I mean, maybe they'll watch it without knowing what it's about, but they'll all have the same sentiments that we do, which is like, oh, this is a very topical movie, and I do think it's an important movie to come out. I just wish that it was freaking executed better, and it's not. And honestly, it isn't just the narrative stuff for me, but I just really wish that it was executed better. We go through a lot of movies where I just wish it was executed better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish they had more time. I wish they didn't rush it.
That's a little bit subjective, though, because, I mean,
of course.
I do think a lot of the elements in this movie are not. Yeah, of course it's subjective, right? But I think some of these elements. I mean, some of the movie is tailored in a way that is it's built like a thriller, right? So it's built in a certain aesthetic, and not everyone loves that aesthetic. I mean, I don't hate it, but I could see why you would say, like, they didn't really put a lot of careful thought into some of it. But it's flashy in a way that is like, upbeat and in an ironic way for this movie, but also a way that catches the attention of a lot of audiences. So I mean, that's kind of like a clever thing that they're just kind of using to it's a juxtaposition, of course, but it's also like it generally this is a thriller movie, right? Like, I mean, you can't take the themes out of this movie, but if you did, someone could enjoy this movie as a thriller movie. So like there's an element of that too. I didn't expect to see it in the Best Picture category, but those are decisions they made that I don't necessarily disagree with.
One thing I will say about the themes, Yusuf, you mentioned how the dean of the medical school is trying to be super objective. I think one major theme of the film is that when someone, even when they're trying to be objective, the system in which that they're being objective is already tilted towards the accused and not the victim. Like it's already an imbalance, and I think that's
Yeah.
what they're trying to show here, is that like it's not equal. Like, yeah, you should obviously have due process. You should assume, you shouldn't always assume guilt right away, but it's not balanced, right?
Right.
Because oftentimes, as we see in this film, the victim is just more or less dismissed, and is presented in like very subtle ways where the dean doesn't remember the victim's name, doesn't remember what room it happened in. The way Madison talks about her, like, oh, that was this kind of girl she was. Like, it's little things like that. I thought that they hit it on very well.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing up something where I didn't even think about that, but it's so true where these people, they're following the rules, they're following everything. The problem is that like what the system views as, level playing field when evaluating these types of situations is completely tilted, right?
Yeah.
And the way that they show that, particularly for the dean, is that Cassie has essentially kidnapped the dean's daughter, right? And she's hanging out in some sort of diner, unharmed, but she leads the dean to believe that she's in the room with some, random students, some random boys, where Nina had been raped, right? So she leads the dean to believe that, and the dean doesn't know what room to go to because she doesn't remember this incident enough because she just didn't care enough. And like they used a lot of kind of the typical arguments in atypical ways. I feel like, for example, somebody who was arguing that people should be more more sympathetic to the victims would say, imagine that it was your daughter, right? And that doesn't really mean anything like to a lot of people because it's just kind of a thing you say. But when they put it in the context of how they use that for the dean, then it really hits home. And the way that she's panicking and the way that she there's nothing she can do because she doesn't know what room to go to. I mean, it encapsulated the helplessness that those people feel. I thought that was a clever way to do it without coming out and saying it. That's just one example. And then I was going to say, that was Act 2 essentially of this movie. Act 3 was her going after the attorney who worked for the university, who helped all these students, get out of their accusations. I think what you said earlier, the fact that he's given the chance for forgiveness and that he receives it, that added a lot of value to me, because if they don't put that in there, then this is just a revenge film, right? Nothing can appease Cassie. Nothing can make her, forgive anybody. She's just out for blood, right? That's what this movie would have been if they don't put that in there. I thought it was such a good idea to put that in there. It's a pretty short scene. They don't take a lot of time with that act of the movie, but it shows that there is a way out for these people. They just don't take it.
Exactly. Yep. Farin, you wanted to get onto the aesthetics, as do I.
Well, you talk about it, man. You're probably going to say the same stuff that I was going to. And I don't remember things specifically, so.
Aesthetically, I thought the movie was visually really awesome. It's super vibrant. Like Yusuf said, like it had this upbeat feel to it, which is, considering the subject matter, it feels like it wouldn't fit, but it's also built somewhat as a thriller. And it has that thriller aspect throughout the film, and it catches you off guard here and there. It has you wondering what's going to happen next here and there, and that's why I did go a little higher than you guys on the narrative as well. The aesthetics played into that in a very good way. Fahad's not here, but the tone of the film, the way that they use the colors, man, the vibrant pink and blues, and
Yeah.
at night, it's Cassie wearing, it's always blue at night. When she is living in her past, or I shouldn't say living in her past, when she is carrying out, I guess, her revenge sequences, she's dressed in blue. There's like blue lighting. It's like very dramatic. Obviously, it's usually taking place at night too, like when she's pretending to be drunk and seeing if a guy would take her home. And then like during the day, especially early on, she's wearing pink.
A lot of pink.
It's very pink everywhere. Like her parents' house is like super pink, like that one living room. But towards the end, I think I should say, when she finds out that Ryan was at the party when Nina was assaulted, she starts to wear blue, like in general after that, and it kind of like signals that she's like, it's not leaving her, like that part of her that she goes, like that character that she goes into at night, Like that's just who she is gonna be now. And that's when I think the film takes a darker turn, and it's like the last quarter of the film, maybe last third. It's really not that long. It's not that long or that much of the film, but it's like the very dark part of the film when she's gonna go and go to that bachelor party and basically exact her revenge on Al.
And sometimes being really forceful with it, but I can see what they were trying to do with music.
It was a little overbearing at sometimes. It was pretty loud, and yeah, I could see.
Yeah, they were trying too hard, I think, as sometimes to make it a feel good movie, and they're trying too hard as sometimes to make it a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
However, at some point, I remember this being like, this is just, it has a chick flick feel. But then after, I don't remember where it was, but it changed. I appreciated that change because then it showed me that the whole chick flick feel, that there was this phony music in the background, was there on purpose. And I could tell that they had really, that they put thought into that. There was reason for it.
Was it early on?
It was maybe early, maybe after the first like quarter, maybe third of the movie.
Okay.
Then it went in. I don't remember exactly what
Would
happened.
that have been like when she decides to go out with Ryan?
I think the scene what you might be talking about is after her and Ryan have been going out for a little bit, and then he mentions that, hey, like, you remember that guy from college, from med school, Al Monroe?
That's what it
and
was.
like her eyes light up, and you can tell she's
that's
like,
when it was.
this was nice, but remember that dark life I was living every night?
Yeah, that was kind of early on. That was at the diner. Like that was like their first.
Yeah, and so that's kind of her
Yeah.
signal that like, okay, this fairy tale of being in love, like it's a little bit, she's not going to be able to let go of the grudge that she's been holding, and the fact that he mentioned this person from medical school, that's that sets off that tick in her again, right? I thought that was a good moment. There's also a moment much earlier, which is pretty much the opening scene, where I felt similar. The beginning of the movie, it feels like it's going to be a feel good movie, like just the opening song, even it's that song. It's, what was it?
You have to sing it. You have to sing it if you're gonna.
It was just, I was busy thinking about boys. Da-da, boys.
I have no idea what the song is, to be honest.
It's a very feel good song, and that whole opening scene in the club, right? The guy takes her home. Obviously, she's drunk out of her mind. Puts her on the bed.
The guy is Adam Brody, by the way. I thought he was gonna have a way bigger part of this movie.
That was Adam Brody. You forget, right? It's and think about his film history for him to be in a movie like this. I mean,
from the OC. That's what okay, go ahead.
Right? Like, it's a little bit. It's just, there's some irony there, I guess. Just kind of the roles that he typically plays, but whatever. But basically, when she gets up from the bed and she says, she's like, "What are you doing?" And she's half drunk, and then she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Right? Like, that moment hit me too, where it was like, okay, maybe this isn't just gonna be a feel good lovey-dovey
So that
story.
is the scene that inspired the whole movie.
Like, that was the first scene that was written, right? And then like kind of the story was written around it.
Right. Yeah.
That's
basically what happened. The director,
Emerald
because I saw that in the interview thing. She was like, I thought of this scene, and then I was like, I'm gonna make a movie around this.
Oh, nice.
That was a powerful scene. I don't even mind that, knowing that.
No, yeah. I'm saying that.
But there was definitely some shock value in that scene. But I thought that was a good like wake up to like, okay, the movie was very, just, it seemed like a normal kind of, fun movie up to that point. Like, if you didn't know what the movie was about. So, I thought that was, there was a few moments like that where you can see them kind of shifting the tone. And I definitely like that. Did you guys notice, by the way, there was a point in the movie where they were using a violin, like it's just like a violin
Toxic,
cover
yeah,
of Toxic, right, by Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Excellent choice. I love that. That was when she's like entering the bachelor party, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I could have probably gone higher on aesthetics for Oz. I mean, you made a lot
I
of
go
good...
5 points higher. What did I give it, a 75? I think 80
you give it
is
a
appropriate.
All right, I'll go up to a 75 then.
All right, cool. We just upped our score.
Yeah, I mean,
aesthetically, it's a pretty good movie, man.
It is, because I do think the colors thing that you pointed out was a good one, because they use like pink a lot when she's like feeling safe, or when she's just when she's at home and she's kind of, she's coping, right? She's just her normal person. But then when she's, out on her revenge tour, there's starkly different colors. There were a little details like that. I think in terms of camera work, I didn't really notice much. Did you guys?
To be fair, no.
I think the one scene that I thought of was, you know, that scene where she's like, she passes out at a stop sign or something, and then the guy is like honking and yelling at her. The camera work in that sequence where she gets out of the car, she goes and gets the tire iron, and then is like walking around her car, just beating the crap out of it. There was a lot of tight camera work on that. I thought that was a pretty well done scene. Although I would say I'm not really sure why that scene was in there necessarily. That one, I could
Same. That's one of those narrative points far in that. I'm like, why didn't that guy just drive around her? It's like an empty ass road.
Yeah.
Because he's a d-bag. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I guess.
So they arrest him off of evidence of what? Because the dog sniffing thing happened afterwards. Everything happened afterwards.
Well, they found the body, right?
No,
Where
they
his
did not
car
find the
was.
body yet. They found the body afterwards. That was afterwards. That's what
What
I'm
do you
saying.
mean it was afterwards? Why would I would
They
think
arrested
the
him
sequence would
first.
happen opposite? Why would you assume the sequence would be the other way when it clearly wouldn't be?
No, because I'm just going off of hold on. I'm just going off of the way that they had shown it to us. This is the order that they had shown it to us, okay? And I
They
know
show him
because I was
getting
thinking about it.
arrested before they show the dogs?
Yes.
Because I don't think so. Unless I naturally just was like, yeah, it makes sense for the dogs to find the body.
Exactly. So this is why I thought the way that I had thought.
okay. So here's what I'll say about this sequence. We're watching at this point in the movie. We're watching the wedding sequence, right? So we see all the whole ceremony pretty much, right? And then as like kind of there's music playing over that scene. They start interlacing stuff from the investigation, starting with the attorney getting the tape, and then the police start arriving at the wedding at that same time. But then we're also watching the investigation playing out with the sniffing dogs and the search team and everything. So
That's happening before the arrest?
Yes, but simultaneously with them showing up at the wedding. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's all
so
happening
we're
at
not
once. It's like
watching
a
we're not
montage.
watching the investigation in real time is what I'm saying, because obviously the attorney did not get the phone that he was told to turn over to the authorities at the same minute of the wedding, and then they showed up at the wedding that minute, right? We're just watching kind of what had happened kind of play out all at once.
He would have gotten the tape before she would have actually even gone missing, right?
Right. Or about the same time.
Maybe like a day or two, whatever.
Yeah,
Like
whatever.
he would have held on to it to see if she goes missing.
Yeah, so I mean,
don't know.
essentially, they're kind of intercutting a bunch of different, a bunch of different moments of kind of what played out after she left for the bachelor party, and at the same time that's interlaced with the sequence from the wedding, including the ceremony all the way through to them getting arrested, right? So it's a little bit confusing as to what happened when. I should say, right?
So wait, hold on. So when does the actual arrest, when they come to say you've been arrested for this thing, that's happening at the same the montage as all the other stuff?
On screen, yes. I think in the timeline that they're implying, it's much after.
Okay, so when in this whole thing does she text everybody saying, when does she text Ryan saying, oh, you thought that was it? This is the end. Enjoy the wedding.
That's like the very
that's how
last
they're-
scene, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That was a scheduled message.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how does that not imply a plan?
It does imply a plan, as much as it does that she sent the phone to the attorney saying that if I disappear, turn this over to the authorities, right?
You can cancel a scheduled message. Like if she made it out alive, she would probably just cancel the scheduled
Yeah,
message.
I assume that she did, properly predict that there was a good chance that she wasn't going to survive, and so she
And I think
planned
that
accordingly.
the movie is trying to. I'm not saying this out of like conjecture. I think that they purposely did that because she's literally like, they make her out to be like a martyr. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like
can see
she's
that,
this
yeah.
angel character, so they're making her out to be like this martyr. And so the fact that she died for her, beliefs, I think it's fitting. And I'm not saying anything was wrong. I'm just saying that this was a planned thing. Maybe she hoped that she didn't die, but
Yeah, I think that's
she got way more out of this happening than she would have engraving Nina's name on his belly.
I mean,
This is way more impactful, right? I think she planned this thing. That's just my personal belief.
It depends on. You could say it's
I don't
more
think she planned
impactful.
her death, but yes, I think she thought like, hey, I'm going to a party with a bunch of drunk guys, and there's like 8 of them. I might not make it out alive, especially after I tell them why I'm there. You know.
You don't think she planned it, even though she had sent the scheduled messages and the tape and all that stuff?
Well,
That was,
saying,
yeah,
My
that was
thing
a
is,
contingency
if-
plan. So
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
contingency
That-
plan.
like, I
exactly.
in case of
in-
her death.
yeah, so but
Yeah,
I don't think she
yeah.
was like, hey, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna die, and that's what's really gonna show them. I think it was more so, I'm gonna go do this, but I need to have a plan in case I'm unable to make it out of there. I'm not gonna let them get away with this, basically, right? So I mean, I think it can be both. It can be that she planned it, knowing full well that she might die, but not that she was trying to get killed in order to get this guy, a life sentence or something. I don't think that's. I didn't read it that way, at least. So, yeah. I think we agree that she foresaw this possibility.
I mean, I think after what happened with Ryan, it was pretty. Like I said, it got really dark, and like Farhan said, it's a fitting end just for the movie. And in terms of entertainment purposes, the whole thriller aspect of the film, it catches you off guard. Like, I didn't think that she was gonna get suffocated to death.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, that was that's one thing I scored the narrative up for a lot, which is just that like you couldn't really predict the next scene in this movie. Throughout, I felt like that. I felt like they kept misleading you into thinking like, oh, it's gonna be this type of movie, oh, it's gonna be that type of movie, and then it's not. And then even towards the end, where you're like, okay, this is clearly just a revenge plot. She's gonna go and she's gonna get her moment, right? She's gonna get him to confess in front of her and say all the things that she the apology she wanted to hear, and then she's gonna kill him anyways. That's what I was kind of expecting, right? And of course they didn't give us that either.
But then at the end, they do give you the satisfaction of that she does get.
Oh no, satisfaction,
post-death.
100%. But it's not the way that I thought it was going to be, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
I mean, they
exactly.
kept kind of pulling things back where I wasn't expecting to see it. So. Yeah, I mean, her dying there, I was just like, what? Like, real? Like, how? Like, what? How is? What's gonna? Like, no, this is so unsatisfying. But then they still pulled it together at the end. So, I mean, I gave it points for that for sure.
I wish they had ended it with her dying. To be honest with you, I wish that they had ended it there.
That's.
You
That
don't
would be
think
too
that's
dark.
you don't think so?
I would kind of like that.
I think
too.
it was too convenient that they ended it with her, obviously. Like, and not convenient, but I mean, it's like it's too wholesome. You know what I mean?
Right,
get
like
what
the
you're
real
saying,
world is
Farhan.
never
Like,
that great, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't have hated it if they had just ended it with her dying. That might have been. It's a much darker movie than the finish ends up
Exactly,
being,
yeah.
but I don't hate it. But I like this too. I liked it too because it gave it a little bit of a little bit of panache. It just at the end you do get a little bit of uplift out of all that darkness towards the end of the movie. So.
Yeah, like we said, like it goes back and forth with, it being a lighthearted, fun, upbeat movie, a thriller, a dark movie, and I mean, just keeping up with that, they finish off on a, I guess, higher note. I mean, it's not the highest of notes, man. She's still dead.
You know what's so weird is I just looking through the trivia thing, and that was the original ending. Just right now, I literally just saw that. That was the original ending, and I feel like they probably just added the rest of that stuff to make it palatable. You know what I mean?
It could be true. Yeah, I mean, it's like Yusuf said it. I think it would have been a little too dark. Not saying that I would have liked it less, but I think this ending fit the film more.
Yeah.
The thing about we just talked about the aesthetics, right? And doesn't it fit the ending more? Like the song comes back and it's these upbeat songs, right? Like,
yeah. No, I don't disagree, but I think that if the stuff was way tighter throughout the movie, then her ending with her dying, and then maybe just a couple of scenes of like him and. By the way, Max Greenfield is basically Schmidt in this movie.
Okay, so I was gonna say
He's 100% Schmidt.
I was gonna say the best comic relief in this movie was after they kill her, and then it's Chris Lowell and Max
Yeah.
Greenfield going back and forth, like, what are we gonna do? And like, you're so right. He plays Schmidt again. But I actually, what, the two of them were together on a show back in the day called Veronica Mars, which I was a huge fan of. Both of them were in that when nobody knew who they were.
Oh,
I guess.
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, like that their back and forth after that is so funny, and it's like the moment in the movie where you're kind of like really not in the mood to laugh, but I was still kind of enjoying it. Like
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that it was, whatever. It
Nobody else could have done that, I think, besides for Max Greenfield. Because that's so characteristically Schmidt. And I think that they knew that. And they were like, this is gonna be an ode to New Girl.
He's only really
I
in
enjoyed
that.
it.
He's only really in that scene, right? I mean, he's introduced for the
Right,
bachelor
yeah.
party, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what? There was one thing that I noticed. It didn't seem like they had done a ton, which I appreciated this part of making her seem like this young girl. They made her seem older than she was, like, in the movie. Like, she's 30 in the movie. They made her seem older, especially in that first scene. Like, I didn't get the idea that she was 30. I got the idea that she was, like, in her 40s. That's what she kind of looked like. And I appreciate that they did that because that gave you the idea that, like, she hasn't aged necessarily well. Like, stuff has been happening in her life and she's stressed out. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
Usually
like,
you would see somebody
the kind
like,
of trauma that she has to deal with.
Yeah.
Has like, yeah.
She looks very like disheveled in a lot of scenes, and yeah, I think that was on purpose. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, yeah, you're right though. Choosing Carey Mulligan for the role is also just not a mistake because they could have chosen somebody a lot younger, and they didn't. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think she was a good choice for this. We didn't talk much about acting, but she just
Margot Robbie was the initial, not the initial choice,
right?
but she was one of the producers, and people think that it was meant for her.
I wouldn't have liked her in this movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
It's too close. It's too close to Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
I think that's the idea that people would have gotten.
It would have seemed like a companion to the movie Joker, right? Like it's like here's how somebody else went crazy, basically, right? Because she appears and she acts like a sociopath. And I think that's kind of the point because she does a lot of things that seem crazy, but there's quite a lot of cleaner motivation. I do think that's like just an interesting comparison because all the talk about Joker and kind of the incels that relate to his character, right? This is the exact opposite,
Right.
Like this is kind of the dark side of that same thing for women. But yeah, you're right. The Harley Quinn thing would have been too close. I think just generally Margot Robbie in this, it wouldn't have had the same impact. I don't know.
No, I agree. That would have taken away. I think that would have taken away credence from the message of the film. So you know what? Go 5 points up on my theme score too, just because of that. All right, that's just for you, for us.
Hey man,
but then we gotta go down somewhere because I don't know. I don't know.
No man, the score.
Dude, your score only goes up to 76, man.
Okay, fine. I can swing it.
Promising Young Woman. That name, did that ring any bells? It didn't for me, but I had to look it up.
No, what
is it?
You remember the Brock Turner case? Stanford University. He basically sexually assaulted, knocked out, someone who was unconscious. He ended up getting convicted, but the judge gave him a 6-month sentence and said he didn't want to ruin, a promising young man's career and his life. Right?
He's like the swimmer or something?
I think he was a swimmer. He was an athlete of some sort, but basically he got a 6-month sentence.
Yeah.
That judge, oddly enough, he was recalled by the people. They literally put him on the ballot, recalled him, and replaced him following
Nice.
that sentence. So
what an asshole! He said "promising young man" for this guy.
I don't think he
God.
said those words, but it was something that was mentioned a lot in the coverage of this movie by a lot of people, and he essentially said something to that same effect, if not those exact words. He said he's not going to ruin a young man's career, or not his career, his entire life, over one mistake. And his father, in testifying at the sentencing, also said that 20 years of his life should not be boiled down to 20 minutes of action. That was the defense of this guy. So this movie, the name was a direct allusion to Brock Turner. I thought that was cool.
Interesting. Yeah, man, that's really messed up. And honestly, so that's again, my criticism of this movie is technical, and it's purely technical. This is a very, I think it's a topical movie, and I don't know if I should say like everybody should watch it, but it's appropriate for the times, and this is a real thing that happens in professional schools, in big Ivy League schools and just in prestigious organizations everywhere. And it's really, really messed up. Really sad and really messed up.
It's prevalent, man. Yeah, it's very messed
Yeah,
up.
It happens.
I do think this movie says the things that need to be said about that subject better than a lot of people can say it. They do a good job of presenting it. So yeah, just for that reason alone, again, topicality may override technicality in terms of my recommendation for this movie, and I'm okay with that. I think, like I said, I think film has that function that's supposed to be part of what it's doing, right? So to me, that's totally valid.
And it's not just it's not even only the sexual misconduct thing. I mean, it happens at a racial level. It happens on like just gender biotypes in general, just all kinds of stuff. Like specifically professional school that I can even think of. There's a bunch of stories that I've heard about like med school and stuff. Where I'll give you, so in dental school, like the surgery faculty had no trust in women. And if a girl was going to do an extraction for the first time, she had to have a guy with her.
What?
You know how long this was? This was 2014, 2015. Not long ago. This kind of shit happens all the freaking time. There was a dude we had on tenure at the school who said racially insensitive stuff to people all the freaking time with the idea that like it's okay if it's a joke. You know what I mean? This is the kind of shit that happens. It's really sad, really messed up, and I think it's really important for this movie to kind of show that. I think they just showed it well.
That just reminded me of the scene where she's walking down the street early in the morning, and the construction workers start catcalling her, and she just stands there,
just stares back at
glaring at them until they like regret their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you said one thing. The lawyer in this movie. This is a cross reference to Michael Clayton, man. He's the same guy.
Oh yeah, he kind of is. Not Michael Clayton himself, though, right? You're talking about...
No, not Michael Clayton, the lawyer, or Arthur.
Arthur, right, who basically loses his mind because of, having kind of an epiphany. He even uses the word epiphany, actually. Jordan Green in this movie, right? He says he had an epiphany, which was viewed as a psychotic episode by his peers.
Exactly. It was the same exact situation with Michael
Clayton
that's
so
movie,
true.
Right?
I didn't even realize that. Oh, man.
It's a crossover, man.
Yeah, it's not really a crossover though, right? You're just saying that. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know if you're serious or not, but yeah, it's a crossover, 100%. I mean, if it's not a crossover on purpose, I'm definitely calling it a crossover. One step away from being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with everything else that we've ever reviewed.
Cool.
We good, guys?
I think we're good.
All right, that wraps up our discussion. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Peace.
Thanks for listening to this production of The Twice Over. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing and sharing it with a friend. Want to see what your tally is? Check out thetwiceover.com. All the movies we've done are listed there, as well as what we're watching for the current week. Follow us at The Twice Over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can leave us any suggestions, feedback, or comments. And if you're about it, you can also support us on Patreon. The music you hear on this podcast is from Amerigo Gazaway. You can find his work on Bandcamp and Spotify.